This is the Dzogchen Senden Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. It is Ahsoka Tano early Thursday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After chanting the Dzogchen's take on the Heart of Wisdom Sutra. When chanting, I recommend breathing from your diaphragm. To facilitate that, please touch the tip of your left thumb to its left ring finger. Rest this bad boy on your thigh. Please touch your right thumb to its ring finger and touch this bad boy to your right thigh. So left thigh, right thigh. The noble love together. The noble love located Shraddha Bodhisattva, the archetype of love and peace, while practicing the deeply vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting Ati Yoga of Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. That is simply noticing the antics of mind in harmony with our inhalation, and relaxing into mind's void nature in harmony with our exhalation. Looked upon the five skandhas or aggregates, and seeing they were empty of self. Said Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. Whatever is form is emptiness. Whatever is emptiness is form. The same holds for our feeling, appraisal, impulse, and awareness. So this would be a good time to make sure we viscerally understand what is meant by no self and emptiness. There are many conflicting teachings when it comes to meditation, and that confusion is best dispelled by viewing the whole subject through the lens of neuroscience. Why is it that Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks? That 90% of all beings, including meditation teachers, are enthusiastic to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And only about 10% are enthusiastic to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. It goes back to the new subject, relatively new subject, of archaeoanthropology. It would seem that approximately 300,000 years ago, our Paleolithic ancestors enjoyed a proto-communistic culture wherein being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind was the rule of the day. Fabulous, but nothing lasts forever. And approximately 13,000 years ago, during the Neolithic Revolution, we saw the advent of proto-capitalism, wherein being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, cruel became the rule of the day. Instead of being like groovy Qui-Gon Jinn, humanity became more like grumpy Mace Windu. But what about, how can we fix this? Simple. When we indulge our controlling tendencies. We tend to overwork both the medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for active focus and active analysis. The consequence is that tends to trigger our amygdala, which functions as the seat of both anxiety and aggression. And yet we read or chanted that Avalokiteshvara is the archetype of both peace and love, which are arguably the opposite of anxiety and aggression. How do we get there from here? Consider, if you will, the simple spinal cord, known as our autonomic nervous system. The more we passively cooperate with it, the more it calms the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, as well as gently stimulates the empathy of our anterior cingulate gyrus, which is lovely. So we know we want to cooperate with our autonomic nervous system. How do we do that? Well, just as we have two phases of breath, inhalation and exhalation, we have two categories of our spinal cord or our autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And that divides up pretty evenly, don't you think? Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, we are wired to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, be they external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Well, what are we supposed to do with that which we notice? That brings us to meditation. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access both the tippy top as well as the very bottom of that same spinal cord, which together, these two regions, these two extremes, function as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. All self is a construct of labeling. When I was a little boy, my stepfather got one of those labeling machines that looked like a little pistol, and he just went hog wild labeling everything. Our sense of self is just a sense of identity. I am Helene's son. I am Herb's stepson. I am Hillary's brother. That type of thing. I am an earthling. I live in North America. These things, that's labels by which we identify ourselves, are like the chains that the ghost of Jacob Marley dragged behind him in the first bit of Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So not only does that which we noticed during our previous inhalation feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining, but it could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, When I was in 4th grade at Platte Ranch Elementary School, they taught us about similes, and that is how a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. That was important to me because I was just obsessed with the $6 Million Man, and that kind of limited my similes. So what is a real world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. And so we see that emptiness is just a metaphor for the fleeting experience of non-graspability latent within each exhalation. And selflessness, or no self, or not self, is just a metaphor for the fleeting experience of liberation from labels, which is available during each relaxing exhalation. One of the really cool things is we don't have to force our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous systems to notice or relax. They're already wired to do that, operating quietly in the background like an app on our smartphone. All we got to do is set aside some time, maybe once every 12 hours or so, to make the decision to take a break from our habit, our exhausting habit of actively competing against our autonomic nervous system and instead passively cooperating with it. And doing that is as easy as silently and mentally reciting the verb noticing during each inhalation, as well as silently and mentally reciting the verb relaxing during each exhalation. Now that hopefully we have demystified the opening bit of the Heart of Wisdom Sutra, let's continue. Let's see. All right. Here we go. So Shariputra is just a proper noun. It's someone's name. Here Shariputra, all dharmas of phenomena are defined by emptiness. And so you'll notice I keep using some words in white. And in fact, I should probably give them a nice black background so they stick out more. So some words are white, and that reminds us of things that we notice as we breathe in. Some things are blue, and that reminds us of some things that we experience as we breathe out while relaxing. So let's take it from the top. Here Shariputra, all dharmas or phenomena are defined by emptiness, not by the dualities of birth or destruction, purity or defilement, completeness or deficiency. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no appraisal, no impulse, no awareness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind. No shape, no sound, no scent, no flavor, no sensation, and no thought. No element of perception from mind to conceptual consciousness. So what we've just done is taken the rigidity of experienced and shaken it off. You know how like when you take a welcome mat and you take it outside and you give it one of these things to shake off the dust? So we're exploring the 3 circles of experience. For instance, we experience sight through the organ of the eyeball, through a shape, a visual object, and through the part of our mind that pertains to that we're in the consciousness of sight correlates to the organ of sight as well as the object of sight. So this exists not so that we get lost in thinking in terms of labeling the minutia of experience, just that we remember that it's not as solid and as permanent as it sometimes feels. Let's continue. No causal link from ignorance to old age and death, or end of causal link from ignorance to old age and death. No stress, no source, no relief, no path. No knowledge, no attainment, and no non-attainment. One of the great ironies of the spiritual path is this. The more neurotically obsessed we are with marking our progress on the path, the more dualistic we are, and the further we are from the peace and the love that are the goal of the path. The irony is if we just make setting aside some time to sit and notice and relax every 12 hours or so, then the mastery of this path becomes an inevitability. Let's continue. Bodhisattvas take refuge in prajnaparamita. Let's try that again. Bodhisattvas take refuge in prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. So let's remember this. Perfection is all that we experience. Perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. Wisdom is found not by belief or theorizing, but by simply relaxing. That is why in the second to the final passage of the Buddha's discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, we read that one can master this path in as little as 7 days. Let's take it from the top. Bodhisattvas take refuge in prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, and live without walls of the mind. Freedom from rigidity. Much better it is to be flexible. Without the tyranny of walls of the mind, and thus without the tyranny of fears. There's a difference between experiencing fear and being controlled by fear. The more we authentically play with mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices and utterances and deeds flow not from contrived calculations, nor from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is known as right effort or effortless effort or doing without doing or wu wei or going with the flow or being in the zone. Perhaps that is what the dude meant in The Big Lebowski with the phrase, "the dude abides." Let us continue. We see through the tyranny of delusion and attain the mastery of awareness and letting go that is nirvana. All Buddhas, past, present, and future also take refuge in prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, and realize the unexcelled perfect mastery of love and letting go that is enlightenment. So for this to make sense, awareness and letting go as well as love and letting go, we have to take a look at the Buddha's eightfold path of enlightenment. To do that, I'm going to drag you to another visual aid. So here's the great irony. Enlightenment. So yes, if we listen to the patriarchs of institutional Buddhism, they'll tell you that enlightenment is very difficult and it's only for special people and it takes a very long time. But if we listen to the Buddha, who is the founder of proto-Buddhism, we learn that enlightenment is nothing more than simply getting so good at the Eightfold Path that we practice it, that we master it, to the degree of practicing it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. How do we do that? All we got to do, simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation every 12 hours or so, we get better and better and better at it. And before we know it, we've mastered awareness and letting go, which is great. But additionally, the more we play with mindfulness and meditation, the more we find ourselves experiencing, feeling loving intention, practicing loving communication, practicing loving conduct, practicing kind commerce. This does not this, and when we do it, it is an automatic thing, a visceral thing, an intuitive thing, guided not by copious effort, but by the effortless effort. That is the fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. We don't have to go through our lives saying, that's empty, that's empty, that's empty, that's empty. That's actually counterproductive. Simply by playing with mindfulness and meditation, during each exhalation we viscerally experience the impermanent and empty nature of all that we perceive, emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. Let's return to the text. I'm going to tap button 7. That should do the trick. And here we go. We should therefore know the great mantra of mind protection, of prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom. The great knowledge mantra, the unexcelled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled. That is simply a metaphor for noticing the antics of mind in harmony with our inhalation, and relaxing into mind's empty nature in harmony with our exhalation, which heals all suffering and is true, not false. The mantra prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, is thus spoken. Gate pada sam gate bodhisattva. Gone perfectly and completely. Gone to liberation, may it be so. Or, may all beings master releasing, perfectly releasing. Perfectly and completely releasing into freedom. Having completed our opening recitation of the Heart of Wisdom Sutra, we could now shift gears. And for the remainder of our live stream, which would be about, let's see, 55, take away 24, that should be 31. The next 31 or so minutes, let us sit comfortably as we notice the antics of mind and relax into mind's nature. I have several disabilities running at the same time. Therefore, having the strength to sit in meditation requires that I handle my energy in a skillful manner. Ironically, energy is the third enlightenment factor. Now, we already dealt with our energy with our ring fingers during our chanting, which brought our energy behind our navel and facilitated diaphragmatic breathing. To facilitate nostril breathing, we're now going to use the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger to both bring our energy to our crown, thus facilitating nostril breathing, but also help us keep track of our first collection of 12 sets of 12 inhalations, which takes about 12 minutes, give or take. So let's rest these hands palms up in our lap. As we feel air enter our nostrils, we could silently and mentally recite the verb noticing. As we feel air exit our nostrils, we could silently and mentally recite the verb relaxing. Let us consider our left hand. Now I'm going to lift my hands up so you can see it on the camera. Please, for the sake of your own ergonomics, keep your hands in your lap. So let's consider our left hand. In addition to using its index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, we can also take the thumb, that left thumb, and touch it to the lower set of creases of our left index finger, thus keeping track of our first set of 12 inhalations. Well, that's a great way of counting sets, but how do I actually count inhalations? For that, we use our right hand. Remember, that's still being in contact with our left. And so every time we silently and mentally recite the verb noticing during our inhalation, we can advance our thumb, beginning with our little finger and working our way across the other fingers. 3 sets of creases on 4 fingers gives us 12 sets of creases. So together as a team, let us practice this right now for approximately a minute. So as you can tell, I've come to the final set of creases on the final finger of my right hand. I therefore return my attention to the thumb on my left hand and advance the tip of my thumb to the next set of creases, thusly. And so you can see how it's possible to count 12 sets of 12 inhalations on our hands. Doing so takes typically between 12 to 15 minutes. You might say, well, I'd like to meditate for more than 15 minutes. Don't worry, I got your back. Because after you've completed one collection of 12 sets of 12 inhalations, you could keep track of a second collection or a third collection. Let's continue. Oh yes, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 6 minutes or so. checking for questions. All right, so let's shift gears now. Instead of breathing from our nostril, let's breathe from our chest. The easiest way to facilitate that is to play with our fingers. Let us use the tip of our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 6 minutes or so. A famous aphorism attributed to Zen Master Dogen is that sitting is enlightenment, or just sit. That is what we like to call a hyperbole, a figure of speech. When we reverse engineer it, the message is simple. The Buddha taught that it is possible to master his path in as little as 7 days. Meditation is easy. As we sit or stand or walk or lay down in a sustainable manner, we simply cooperate with the natural processes of our autonomic nervous system. Our body already wants to notice vulnerably as we breathe in. Our body already wants to relax to a certain degree as we breathe out. By taking a few minutes twice a day to transcend our habit of actively resisting that, and instead passively cooperate with it, enlightenment becomes an inevitability. There is no need to superstitiously worship a dead Indian or your teacher. There is no need to pseudo-intellectually puzzle over a koan or riddle. Just sit and breathe and notice and relax. There is no need for ritual or beliefs or visualizations. There is no need for fear of bad karma or craving for good karma. The more we meditate, the more we notice and relax in harmony with our breathing, the more our autonomic nervous system will calm our amygdala, the seat of aggression and anxiety, and gently stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy. For loving kindness is the essence of all morality. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk recitation, explanation, and practice of meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.